The fluorescent lights of the hospital hallway buzzed overhead as Emma pressed herself against the wall, her hands trembling so violently she could barely grip her phone. Her scrubs were still damp with coffee from where Dr. Richard Brennan had accidentally bumped into her that morning, the third such accident this week. But accidents didn't explain the way his hand had lingered on her lower back. Accidents didn't explain the text messages that came at 2 a.m, or the way he'd cornered her in the supply closet yesterday, his breath hot against her neck as he whispered what he wanted to do to her. "Please," she whispered into the phone, her voice cracking. "Please don't let him see me alone. He's been waiting outside the break room for 20 minutes. I can see him through the window. He knows my shift ends in 10 minutes. Her best friend Sarah's voice crackled through the speaker. "Emma, you need to report this. This is harassment. He's the chief of surgery." Emma's laugh was bitter, bordering on hysterical. "His uncle is on the hospital board. Last week, when I tried to talk to HR, they asked me if I'd been encouraging his attention. They asked what I was wearing." Through the window, she could see Dr. Brennan checking his watch. He was handsome in that polished country club way that made people trust him instantly. Salt and pepper hair, expensive suit under his white coat, a smile that had probably charmed its way through medical school and 3 marriages. Nobody would believe that same smile turned predatory when the cameras weren't watching. "I have to go," Emma whispered. "I'll take the back stairs, She didn't finish the sentence. Dr. Brennan had turned and his eyes locked onto hers through the glass. His smile widened. Emma's blood turned to ice. She spun and ran, her sneakers squeaking against the linoleum. Behind her, she heard the break room door open. Heard his voice, calm and friendly, calling her name like they were colleagues having a casual conversation. Like he wasn't the reason she'd started keeping pepper spray in her purse. Like he hadn't told her last week that if she didn't have dinner with him, he'd make sure her performance reviews reflected her concerning lack of team spirit. The back stairwell was just ahead. Emma's badge was already in her hand, ready to swipe through the security door. Just 10 more feet. Just 5. A hand closed around her upper arm, yanking her backward with enough force to make her stumble. Dr. Brennan's cologne engulfed her, expensive and cloying. Leaving without saying goodbye? His voice was still friendly, but his grip was iron. "That's not very professional, Emma. We need to have a conversation about your attitude. Let me go." She tried to pull away, but he was stronger, and he knew it. "Dr. Brennan, please. It's Richard." His other hand came up to her face, thumb brushing her cheek in a gesture that would look tender to anyone watching the security footage. "How many times do I have to tell you? We're going to be much more than colleagues, you and I. You just need to stop fighting it." Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. The hallway was empty. Third shift didn't start for another hour, and everyone else had already gone home. She'd planned it that way, trying to avoid him. Instead, she'd isolated herself. "I've been patient," Richard continued, his thumb now tracing her jaw. "I've been a gentleman, but my patience has limits, sweetheart. You're going to have dinner with me tonight. We're going to talk about your future here, and you're going to be very, very nice about it." "No." The word came out stronger than she felt. "I'm going home. If you don't let go of me right now, I'll scream." His laugh was soft, almost pitying. "And who's going to believe you? The nurse who's been here 6 months? Or the surgeon who's saved hundreds of lives? The girl with student loans? Or the man who funds the new pediatric wing?" His grip tightened. "Go ahead, scream. Let's see who they believe." Emma opened her mouth, and for a moment, she genuinely didn't know if a scream or a sob would come out. Neither did. Instead, a voice cut through the hallway, smooth and cold as winter steel. "I'd suggest you remove your hand before I remove it for you." Both Emma and Richard turned. A man stood at the end of the hallway, and Emma's breath caught for an entirely different reason. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car. Dark hair, darker eyes, and a face that could have been carved from marble for all the warmth it showed. but it was his presence that made the air feel thinner, made the spacious hallway suddenly seem too small. He radiated danger the way Richard radiated cologne, invisible but unmistakable. Richard's hand loosened slightly on Emma's arm. "I'm sorry, but this is a private conversation." "This is a hospital staff matter. I don't care if it's a matter of national security." The stranger's voice didn't rise, didn't sharpen, but somehow became more menacing in its steadiness. "You have 3 seconds to step away from her." "And who exactly are you?" Richard's professional mask slipped, irritation bleeding through. "Security? Because I can assure you I have every right to speak with my staff." "1." The single word made Emma shiver. Richard's hand fell away from her arm. "This is ridiculous," Richard sputtered, but he was backing up now, some primal instinct apparently overriding his ego. "I don't know who you think you are, but 2." Emma found herself moving without thinking, stepping away from Richard and toward this dangerous stranger. It should have terrified her, trading one threat for an unknown variable. But her instincts, the same ones that had been screaming at her to run from Richard for weeks, were utterly silent now. Richard looked between them, and Emma saw the moment his self-preservation won out over his pride. "This isn't over," he said, pointing at Emma. "We will have that conversation about your future here." "No," the stranger said quietly. "You won't." Something in his tone made Richard go pale. He turned and walked away quickly, his expensive shoes clicking against the floor in an uneven rhythm that betrayed his forced calm. Emma's knees suddenly felt like water. She grabbed the wall for support, her breath coming in short gasps as the adrenaline drained out of her. "Are you hurt?" The stranger's voice was different now, the ice thawed into something almost gentle. Emma shook her head, not trusting her voice. He moved closer, and she finally looked up at him properly. He was younger than she'd first thought, maybe early 30s, with sharp features that were handsome in a severe, uncompromising way. His eyes were gray, she realized. Storm cloud gray. "How long has that been going on?" he asked. 3 weeks. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. He started with compliments, then text messages. Then he started touching. Accidentally at first, then not so accidentally. "I tried to report it, but he's chief of surgery, uncle on the board." The stranger's jaw tightened. "I know," Emma blinked. "How do you—" "I make it my business to know things." He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then pocketed it again. "You're Emma Hartley, 26, graduated nursing school 2 years ago. Student loans from State University. Your apartment lease is up next month, and you've been looking at places you can't afford because you're trying to move farther away from here." The fear came rushing back. "Who are you? Why do you know all that?" "My name is Vincent." He said it like she should recognize it, and when she didn't, something flickered across his face. Not irritation, exactly. Almost like relief? "My grandmother is a patient here, floor 7. Cardiac unit. Mrs. Castellano?" Emma's eyes widened, the elegant older woman with the sharp wit and the private room that was always full of flowers. "She's your grandmother?" "She is." Vincent's expression softened fractionally. "She speaks very highly of you. Says you're the only one who doesn't treat her like she's already dead." Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. "She's easy to talk to, and she's doing much better. The new medication is—" "I know. I read her charts." At Emma's startled look, he added, "I have copies sent to me daily. I trust the medical team, but I verify everything." Of course he did. Emma was starting to understand what kind of man Vincent was. Control wasn't just something he wanted. It was something he required. "Thank you," she said quietly, for what you did. I don't know what would have happened if—" "I do." Vincent's voice went cold again. "Which is why you're not working another shift here." Emma's stomach dropped. "What?" "No, I need this job. I have loans, rent. You'll have a new job. Better pay, better hours, better benefits." He was already typing on his phone again. My grandmother needs a private nurse. Someone who actually gives a damn about her recovery, not just her insurance payout. You'll move into the east wing of the house. Your student loans will be paid in full. Stop. Emma held up a hand, her head spinning. You can't just pay my student loans. That's crazy. I don't even know you. Vincent looked at her like she'd said something in a foreign language. You need a safe place to work. I need someone I trust taking care of my grandmother. This is a practical solution. This is insane. This is necessary. He stepped closer, and Emma had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. That man will not stop. You know that, don't you? He'll escalate. He'll corner you somewhere more private. And next time, I might not be here. The truth of it hit her like a physical blow. Richard had been getting bolder, more aggressive. The text messages had gone from inappropriate to threatening. Yesterday, he'd told her he knew where she lived. Why? Emma's voice came out small. Why do you care? Vincent was silent for a long moment. My grandmother told me something yesterday. She said you remind her of my mother. Kind, but not weak. Gentle, but not stupid. His jaw tightened. My mother died because the men around her failed to protect her when she needed it. I won't make that mistake again. There was a story there, Emma knew. A painful one. But before she could respond, Vincent's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. A car is waiting for you out front. It will take you home. Pack what you need for tonight. Tomorrow, movers will handle the rest. I haven't said yes. You will. It wasn't arrogance in his voice, just certainty. Because you're smart, and you know this is the best option you have. Emma wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle this herself, that she didn't need some stranger, some wealthy, dangerous stranger, swooping in to rearrange her life. But her arm still ached where Richard had grabbed it. Her phone still had 17 unread messages from him, each one more insistent than the last. 1 month, she heard herself say. Trial basis, for your grandmother. And you don't pay my loans. I'll accept room and board and a salary, but I pay my own debts. Vincent's lips curved into something that might have been a smile if it had reached his eyes. 2 months, and I'll pay half your loans. Non-negotiable. Why half? Because you need to keep your pride, and I need you to take the job. Compromise. He extended his hand. Do we have an agreement? Emma looked at his hand, then back at his face. This was crazy. This was reckless. This was... Her phone buzzed. Another message from Richard. We need to talk. Tonight. Don't make me come find you. Emma took Vincent's hand. His grip was firm, warm, and somehow reassuring. We have an agreement. Good. Vincent released her hand but didn't step back. The car is waiting. And Emma? Yes? If Dr. Brennan contacts you again, you don't respond. You forward it to me. Understood? There was something in his voice that made Emma shiver. Not fear exactly. More like the feeling of standing near a caged predator and being very, very glad the cage was there. Understood. Vincent nodded once, then turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. Emma watched him go, her heart still racing, wondering what exactly she'd just agreed to. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Richard. Emma looked at the text, then at the direction Vincent had gone. She took a deep breath, opened her messages, and forwarded Richard's text to the number Vincent had given her. 3 seconds later, her phone rang. Vincent. Yes, she answered. Don't go home alone tonight. The car will wait while you pack, then take you directly to the estate. I'll have security posted at your apartment until the movers come tomorrow. That's really not... Emma? Something in the way he said her name made her stop mid-sentence. Let me be very clear about something. You're under my protection now. That means I don't take chances. It means when I see a threat, I eliminate it. Do you understand? Yes. Good. I'll see you in an hour. He hung up before she could respond. Emma stood in the empty hallway, Her phone still pressed to her ear, and wondered if she'd just made the best decision of her life or the most dangerous. Possibly both. The Castellano estate was not what Emma had expected. She'd been picturing something ostentatious, maybe tacky, all gold fixtures and marble statues. Instead, the car had wound through miles of wooded property before emerging at a sprawling stone mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from the Italian countryside. Elegant, expensive, but understated in a way that spoke of old money and older power. A woman in her 50s met Emma at the door, introducing herself as Margaret, the head of household staff. She was efficient and kind, showing Emma to a suite of rooms in the east wing that were larger than her entire apartment. "Mrs. Castellano is sleeping now," Margaret said, "but she's excited to see you in the morning. Mr. Vincent has asked that you settle in tonight and begin your duties tomorrow." "Where is Vincent?" Emma asked, trying to sound casual. Margaret's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. "Mr. Vincent had some business to attend to. He'll return later tonight." "Business? At 10 o'clock on a Friday night?" Emma didn't ask what kind of business. She unpacked the small bag she'd brought, showered, and tried to sleep in the enormous four-poster bed. It was impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Richard's face, felt his hand on her arm, saw Vincent's cold eyes as he'd counted down. What had he meant when he said he'd eliminate threats? Emma was still awake when she heard the sound of cars outside. Multiple cars, their engines cutting off simultaneously. She went to the window, careful to stay behind the curtain. 4 black SUVs were parked in the circular drive. Men in dark suits emerged from 3 of them, their movements coordinated and professional. Vincent emerged from the 4th, and even from this distance Emma could see the tension in his shoulders. He spoke briefly with one of the men, who nodded and handed him something. Vincent looked at it, a phone maybe, then up at the house, directly at Emma's window. She jerked back from the curtain, heart hammering. There was no way he could have seen her. The lights were off, and she'd been careful, but somehow she knew he had. 10 minutes later there was a soft knock on her door. Emma opened it to find Vincent standing in the hallway, still in his suit, but with his tie loosened and the top button of his shirt undone. He looked tired, but his eyes were alert. "I saw your light wasn't on," he said, "but I could tell you were awake." "How?" A slight smile. "Your shadow moved when you heard the cars." Emma's cheeks heated. "I wasn't spying. I just couldn't sleep." "I know." He leaned against the doorframe, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked almost relaxed. "I wouldn't be able to sleep either, if I were you. New place, strange circumstances, questionable employer." "I didn't say you were questionable." "You didn't have to. You're smart enough to have questions." He studied her face. "Want to ask them?" Emma bit her lip, torn between curiosity and self-preservation. "What kind of business were you attending to? The kind that ensures Dr. Richard Brennan won't be a problem anymore." Her breath caught. "What did you do?" "Nothing illegal. Nothing permanent." Vincent's expression was unreadable. "I had a conversation with his uncle on the hospital board. Very thorough, very detailed conversation about liability and lawsuit exposure. I may have mentioned that I have security footage of Dr. Brennan harassing you. I definitely mentioned that I have copies of his text messages to you, and to 3 other nurses over the past 2 years. Emma's eyes widened. "How did you—" "I told you. I make it my business to know things." He pushed off from the doorframe. "By Monday morning, Dr. Brennan will be on a leave of absence pending an investigation. By the end of the month, he'll be looking for work in another state, possibly another country, if the board is as smart as I think they are. But the footage, the messages from other nurses, were all legally obtained. I have people who are very good at finding information that already exists." Vincent's voice was matter-of-fact. "Richard Brennan is a predator. He's been one for years. He just had the protection of money and connections. Now he doesn't." Emma's legs felt weak. She sat down on the edge of the bed before they could give out. You did all that in 3 hours? I made phone calls from the car on the way to the hospital. The rest was just follow-up. Vincent moved into the room, keeping a respectful distance. I told you, Emma. You're under my protection now. That's not an empty phrase. Who are you? Emma whispered. Really? Vincent was silent for a long moment, studying her face like he was trying to decide something. Finally, he sat down in the chair across from the bed, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. My family has been in this country for 4 generations, he said quietly. We built our fortune through, let's call them morally flexible business practices. Import-export, construction, labor management, things that existed in legal gray areas. Emma's mouth went dry. The word you're thinking of has a lot of Hollywood baggage, Vincent interrupted. But yes. My grandfather was what people call a mob boss. My father tried to legitimize the business, move us into real estate and venture capital. He was partially successful. His jaw tightened. He was also killed for that success by people who didn't want the old families going straight. I'm sorry, Emma said softly. Vincent waved it off. It was 15 years ago. I've made my peace with it. He looked up at her, and his eyes were intense. What I haven't made peace with is weakness, failing to protect people who need it. My mother needed protection, and my father was too focused on legitimacy to see the threat. I won't make that mistake. So you protect your grandmother. I protect everyone in my household. Vincent leaned back in the chair. Which now includes you. My business is mostly legitimate now. Real estate development, private security, investment. But I still have connections to the old world. I still know how to make people understand consequences without breaking laws. Emma should have been terrified, should have been running for the door. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Safe, protected. Like for the first time in 3 weeks, she could breathe without looking over her shoulder. Why are you telling me all this? She asked. Because you asked, because you deserve honesty. Vincent stood, moving toward the door. And because you need to understand what it means to be under my protection. It means I know everything about threats before they become problems. It means people who might hurt you will be given very clear reasons not to. It means you're safe here. He paused at the door, looking back at her. It also means that if you want to leave, you can. At any time. No consequences, no retaliation. I'll pay your loans regardless, get you set up somewhere safe. This only works if you choose it. Emma met his eyes. I choose to stay. Something shifted in Vincent's expression. Relief, maybe. Or satisfaction. Good, he said softly. Get some sleep, Emma. Tomorrow you meet my grandmother officially, and she's much more intimidating than I am. He left before Emma could dispute that statement. She lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind whirling. She'd gone from being harassed by her boss to living in a mansion protected by a man who was probably a criminal, definitely dangerous, and somehow made her feel safer than she'd felt in years. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Margaret. Mr. Vincent asked me to inform you that your apartment building's security has been upgraded. There are now cameras covering all entrances and your unit's door. The footage is monitored 24/7. Sleep well. Emma stared at the message, then laughed. It was slightly hysterical, but genuine. She was under the protection of Vincent Castellano. God help anyone who tried to hurt her now. For the first time in weeks, Emma fell asleep without checking the locks on her doors 3 times. Morning came with soft sunlight through gauze curtains and the smell of fresh coffee. Emma woke disoriented, momentarily forgetting where she was until she saw the elegant wallpaper and antique furniture. Right. The Castellano estate. Her new job. Her new life. There was a soft knock, and Margaret entered with a tray. Good morning, Miss Emma. Mrs. Castellano is awake and asking for you. She'd like you to join her for breakfast on the terrace once you're ready. 20 minutes later, Emma found herself on a stone terrace overlooking gardens that could have been in Tuscany. Mrs. Castellano sat at a wrought iron table, looking far healthier than she had in the hospital. Her silver hair was swept up elegantly, and she wore a silk robe that probably cost more than Emma's car. "Emma, darling." The older woman's face lit up. "Come, sit. Tell me everything. How did my Vincent convince you to leave that dreadful hospital?" Emma sat, accepting a cup of coffee from a hovering staff member. "He was very persuasive." "I'm sure he was." Mrs. Castellano's eyes twinkled. "My grandson has many talents. Subtlety is not one of them." She leaned forward conspiratorially. "He told me about that pig of a doctor. I hope Vincent scared him properly. Mrs. Castellano, please call me Rosa. We're going to be spending a lot of time together." She sipped her espresso. "And you can spare me the modest denials. I know my grandson. I know what he's capable of. I also know he doesn't bring women to live in this house unless they're special." Emma nearly choked on her coffee. "It's not like that. I'm here to take care of you." "Of course you are. And Vincent is just being charitable." Rosa's smile was knowing. "Dear girl, I've been married 3 times and buried 2 husbands. I know what attraction looks like. The way Vincent looked at you in the hospital." "He was at the hospital?" 3 times this week. Coincidentally, always during your shifts." Rosa's expression softened. "He told me he was checking on me." "But Vincent has people who check on me. He comes himself when there's something, or someone, he wants to see." Emma's cheeks burned. "He was just being protective because you mentioned me." "Keep telling yourself that, dear." Rosa patted her hand. "Now, tell me about your family. Vincent's background check was thorough, but I prefer to hear these things from the source." They spent the morning talking, and Emma found herself relaxing despite the surreal circumstances. Rosa was sharp, funny, and surprisingly down-to-earth despite her obvious wealth. She told stories about Vincent as a boy, serious even then, always protecting the younger kids in the neighborhood, always the first to stand up to bullies. "He got that from his mother," Rosa said softly. "My daughter-in-law was the kindest person I've ever known, but kind doesn't mean weak. She would have burned down the world for the people she loved." Her eyes grew distant. In the end, the world burned her first. Vincent mentioned she died. "She was caught in crossfire, a stupid, pointless attack meant for my husband." Rosa's hand tightened on her coffee cup. "Vincent was 12. He saw it happen. He's spent every day since then making sure he's strong enough, connected enough, powerful enough that no one he loves is ever vulnerable again." Emma's heart ached. Suddenly, Vincent's intensity made terrible sense. "He's lonely," Rosa continued. "He won't admit it. He has women, of course, beautiful, vapid things who want his money or his danger. But he doesn't let anyone close. Not really." She looked at Emma intently. "Until now." "Rosa, I really think you're reading too much into—" "Emma!" The older woman's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm dying. The doctors dance around it, but I can feel it. My heart is tired. I have maybe a year, if I'm lucky. The new medication will buy me time, nothing more." Rosa smiled. "I'm at peace with it. I've had a good life, a full life. But I worry about Vincent. He's so alone in that big, dangerous world he's built for himself. I worry about what happens when I'm gone, and there's no one left to remind him he's human." Emma didn't know what to say to that. "So when I see the way he looks at you," Rosa continued, "when I see him actually bringing someone into his home, into his life, I have hope, even if you can't see it yet." Before Emma could respond, Margaret appeared. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Vincent needs to speak with you, Miss Emma. He's in his office." Emma excused herself and followed Margaret through the mansion to a wood-paneled office that smelled like leather and old books. Vincent stood by the window, phone to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. He gestured for her to enter, finishing his conversation. "Sorry about that," he said, pocketing his phone. "How's my grandmother?" "She's wonderful. We had a great morning." "Good." Vincent's expression shifted to something more serious. "I need to tell you something. Dr. Brennan tried to access your medical records this morning. Hospital IT flagged it as suspicious and denied the request. Emma's stomach dropped. He's looking for leverage. He won't find any. I've had your records moved to a private server. Legally. With your consent. Margaret had you sign the authorization forms last night, along with your employment contract. Emma vaguely remembered signing several documents, too exhausted to read them carefully. You planned for this. I planned for everything. Vincent moved closer. But here's the concerning part. He also tried to access your apartment this morning. The new security cameras caught him trying to use a key. The blood drained from Emma's face. How does he have a key? Building manager, most likely. Bribed or threatened. Vincent's jaw was tight. He's escalating, which means we need to accelerate our timeline. What timeline? Vincent was silent for a moment, and Emma could practically see him weighing his words. The timeline where you're completely untouchable. Where Richard Brennan and anyone like him understands that you're not just under my protection. You're mine. The possessiveness in that last word should have alarmed her. Instead, it sent heat flooding through her body. What are you suggesting? Emma's voice came out breathier than she intended. Vincent stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating off him. I'm suggesting we make this official, public, undeniable. Official how? However you'll allow. His eyes were intense on hers. A relationship, an engagement. Whatever makes you feel safe and sends the clearest message. Emma's head spun. We barely know each other. We know enough. Vincent's hand came up, fingertips barely grazing her cheek. You know I'll protect you. I know you're brave and kind and stronger than you think. We know there's something here. You feel it too. Don't pretend you don't. Emma's breath caught. She did feel it, had felt it from the moment he'd appeared in that hallway like an avenging angel. But this was crazy. This was... Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You can't hide forever, Emma. We need to talk. Tonight. I'll be waiting outside your apartment at 8 p.m. Don't make me come looking for you. Vincent's expression went cold as ice as he read the message over her shoulder. He plucked the phone from her hand, stepped back, and made a call. He just threatened her again. Vincent said into the phone, his voice deadly calm. I want him picked up. Now. Not hurt. Just detained. Somewhere quiet where he can think about his choices. A pause. Good. Keep him there until I arrive. He hung up and looked at Emma. He won't be waiting outside your apartment tonight. He won't be doing anything tonight except contemplating the error of his ways. Vincent, what are you going to explain to him very clearly what happens to men who threaten what's mine? Vincent's eyes blazed. And then I'm going to make sure everyone in this city knows you're off limits. How? Vincent pulled a small box from his desk drawer. Emma's heart stopped as he opened it to reveal a ring, an emerald surrounded by diamonds, vintage and breathtaking. This was my mother's, Vincent said quietly. My father gave it to her on their first date, told her he knew from the moment he saw her that she was his future. She laughed and told him he was insane. They were engaged 3 months later. Emma stared at the ring, then at Vincent. You can't be serious? I am. Vincent's voice was steady. I know it's fast. I know it's unconventional. But Emma, I've spent 15 years building walls, keeping people at a distance, controlling every variable. And then you walked into my grandmother's hospital room and treated her like a person instead of a diagnosis. You made her laugh. You made her hope. His voice roughened. And when that bastard put his hands on you, something in me snapped. The thought of someone hurting you, scaring you, I can't tolerate it. Won't tolerate it. This is insane, Emma whispered, but she couldn't look away from the ring. From him. Probably, Vincent agreed. But it's also the truth. You can wear the ring and we tell people we're engaged. Real relationship, real commitment, if that's what you want. Or it's just for show, just for protection. and we figure out the rest as we go, but either way, you'll be untouchable. The fiancé of Vincent Castellano. No one will dare come near you." Emma's mind was racing. This was crazy. This was a fairy tale and a nightmare wrapped together. But she thought about Richard's hand on her arm, thought about the fear that had been her constant companion for weeks, thought about Vincent's cold fury when he'd seen her being threatened, and the gentle way he'd checked if she was hurt. Thought about Rosa's words. He doesn't let anyone close. Not really. Until now. "If I say yes," Emma said slowly, "if I agree to this, what are you getting out of it?" Vincent's smile was slight but genuine. "Besides the satisfaction of keeping you safe. My grandmother's happiness. A reason to come home at night instead of sleeping at the office. Someone who sees me as Vincent, not just as the Castellano heir." He paused. "And maybe, if I'm very lucky, the chance to see if this thing between us is as real as it feels." Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. This was insane. This was reckless. This was... Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Richard. "You think you can ignore me? I made you. I can destroy you." Emma looked at the message, looked at Vincent's face, set in hard lines as he read it too, looked at the ring that had belonged to a woman brave enough to love a dangerous man. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Yes. Let's do this." Vincent's eyes widened fractionally, the most surprise she'd seen from him. Yes to the engagement, or yes to all of it? Emma's voice strengthened. "Real engagement, real relationship. We figure out the rest as we go." "But Vincent, I need you to understand something." "What?" "I'm not doing this just for protection. I'm doing this because Rosa was right. There is something here, something that scares me because it's so fast and so intense, but I'd rather be scared with you than safe with anyone else." Vincent closed the distance between them in 2 strides. His hands came up to frame her face, thumb brushing her cheek with unexpected gentleness. "I'm going to kiss you now," he said quietly. "If that's not what you want, tell me to stop." Emma's answer was to rise on her toes and close the final distance herself. The kiss started gentle, almost reverent, like Vincent was afraid she might shatter. But when Emma's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, something unleashed in both of them. The kiss deepened, turned hungry, weeks of tension and fear and want pouring into it. Vincent's arm came around her waist, pulling her flush against him, and Emma made a sound she'd never heard herself make before, desperate and needy, and utterly unguarded. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "I'm going to take care of you," he said, voice rough. "I'm going to protect you. I'm going to make sure you never have to be afraid again. Do you believe me?" "Yes," Emma whispered and realized she meant it completely. Vincent pulled back slightly, taking her left hand in his. "Then let me make it official." He slid his mother's ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, the emerald catching the light like it was made for her. "Beautiful," Vincent murmured, but he was looking at her face, not the ring. Emma laughed. The sound edged with hysteria and joy in equal measure. "Your grandmother is going to be impossible about this." "She's going to be delighted." Vincent pulled out his phone. "And so will half the city, once this makes the news." "The news?" Vincent showed her his screen. He was drafting a press release. "Engagement announcement. I'll send it to the major papers and a few strategic blogs. By tonight, everyone will know you're mine." The possessiveness should have bothered her. Instead, it made her feel powerful, claimed, protected. "And Richard?" she asked. Vincent's expression went cold again. "Let me worry about Richard. By the time I'm done with him, he'll be grateful I'm only destroying his career." "Vincent, trust me," he said, and it wasn't a question. Emma looked at the ring on her finger, at the man who'd turned her life upside down in less than 24 hours, at the future that was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. "I trust you," she said. Vincent smiled, a real smile this time, one that reached his eyes and made him look younger, less burdened. Then let's go tell my grandmother she was right. She'll be unbearable about it, but it'll make her happy. They walked hand in hand back to the terrace, where Rosa was still sitting with her coffee. She looked up as they approached, saw their linked hands and the ring on Emma's finger, and her face transformed with joy. "Finally," she exclaimed. "I was beginning to think you'd never figure it out." "You knew," Emma said. "Darling, I'm old, not blind. I've been waiting for this since Vincent first mentioned you 3 weeks ago." Rosa stood, moving to embrace them both. "Welcome to the family, truly. Now sit down and tell me everything. When's the wedding? Please tell me soon. I want to dance at your reception." "Rosa," Vincent started. "Don't you Rosa me. I'm dying. I'm allowed to be demanding." She was smiling through tears. "My grandson. Finally letting someone in. Finally happy. Do you know how long I've waited for this?" Emma felt tears prick her own eyes. This was real. This was happening. She was engaged to a man she'd known for a day, standing on a terrace that cost more than she'd make in a lifetime, wearing a ring that belonged in a museum. And somehow, it felt exactly right. Vincent's arm came around her waist, solid and reassuring. "We haven't discussed wedding plans yet," he said to his grandmother, "but I promise you'll be there." "Front row." "I better be. I'm giving the toast." Rosa wiped her eyes. "Now, Emma, tell me, what kind of wedding do you want? Big or small? Traditional or modern? And please say you have better taste than Vincent's second cousin, who had ice sculptures of themselves. Tackiest thing I've ever seen." They spent the next hour planning a wedding that probably wouldn't happen for months, if Rosa's health held. But Emma found herself getting caught up in it anyway, in Rosa's enthusiasm and Vincent's quiet satisfaction, and the strange, sudden rightness of it all. Her phone buzzed again. Vincent glanced at it, then silenced it completely. "He won't bother you anymore," Vincent said quietly, for her ears only. "I promise." Emma believed him. That evening, the engagement announcement hit the news. Emma watched in amazement as her phone exploded with notifications. Old friends, distant relatives, former classmates, all shocked by the news. The photos Vincent's publicist had chosen were somehow perfect. The two of them on the terrace, Emma's left hand prominently displayed, Vincent looking at her like she was the only person in the world. The hospital staff group chat was losing its mind. Someone had screenshotted the announcement and posted it with multiple exclamation points, and then one message stood out. From a number she didn't recognize. "This doesn't change anything. We still need to talk." Vincent read it over her shoulder and made a phone call. "Where is he?" A pause. "Good. Put him on." There was a shuffling sound, then Richard's voice, tight with barely controlled rage. "What the hell is this? You can't just— Dr. Brennan." Vincent's voice was ice. "Let me make something very clear to you. Emma Hartley is off limits. Completely, permanently, irrevocably off limits. Do you understand? This is kidnapping. This is a business conversation," Vincent interrupted. "You're currently in a warehouse that I own, having been invited here to discuss your future. No one has touched you. No one will touch you. But you're going to listen very carefully to what I have to say." Emma could hear Richard's heavy breathing through the phone. "You have a choice," Vincent continued. "Option 1, you leave the state. Tonight. I have a colleague in Texas who runs a rural clinic. They need a general physician. The pay is half what you're making now. The prestige is non-existent. But you'll have a job and your license intact. You can't force me to— Option 2. I release the evidence I have of your harassment to the medical board, the police, and every news outlet in the state. Your text messages to Emma and 3 other women, security footage of you cornering them, testimony from nurses you've threatened. You'll lose your license, face criminal charges, and spend the rest of your life explaining to prospective employers why sexual predator comes up in background checks." Silence on the other end. "Option 3, Vincent's voice dropped even lower, is that you continue to harass Emma, continue to threaten her, Continue to think you have any power here at all, and I stop being civilized. What does that mean? Richard's voice cracked. It means I have friends in low places, Dr. Brennan. Friends who are very good at making problems disappear. Permanently. Vincent let that hang in the air. I won't kill you. I'm not my grandfather, but I can make you wish you'd never been born. I can make sure every door closes in your face. Every opportunity vanishes. Every person you care about suddenly wants nothing to do with you. I can unmake your entire life without breaking a single law. Do you understand me? This is insane. She's just a nurse. She's my fiancé, Vincent said, and Emma's heart skipped. Which makes her family. And I protect my family the way wolves protect their pack. Absolutely, ruthlessly, without mercy for threats. There was a long silence. So what's it going to be? Vincent asked. Texas and a fresh start? Or war? Texas. Richard's voice was defeated. I'll take Texas. Smart man. You have until midnight to be out of the state. If you ever contact Emma again, if you ever so much as think about her, I'll know. And option 3 becomes non-negotiable. Vincent's tone didn't change. My men will drive you home to pack. You leave tonight. Understood? Understood. Vincent ended the call and looked at Emma. He won't bother you again. Emma should have been shocked by the threats, by the casual way Vincent had dismantled a man's life. Instead, she felt nothing but relief. Thank you, she said quietly. Vincent pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You don't thank me for protecting what's mine. It's not a favor. It's a fundamental truth. Emma wrapped her arms around him, resting her head against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong. I'm really engaged, she said wonderingly. To you, this is really happening. Having second thoughts? There was something vulnerable in Vincent's voice, hidden under the confidence. No. Emma pulled back to look up at him. I'm having first thoughts. Like maybe this is crazy, but crazy doesn't mean wrong. Like maybe I've been playing it safe my whole life, and safe got me cornered in a hospital hallway by a predator. Like maybe dangerous, when it's the right kind of dangerous, is exactly what I need. Vincent's smile was slow and devastating. The right kind of dangerous? You tell me you're going to protect me, and I believe you. You threaten someone on my behalf, and I feel safe instead of scared. That's either the right kind of dangerous, or I need therapy. Could be both, Vincent said, but he was grinning now. Lucky for you, I can afford excellent therapists. Emma laughed and kissed him, right there in his office, with his grandmother's ring on her finger and her future suddenly, terrifyingly bright. When they broke apart, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. I meant what I said, he murmured. You're mine now, and I take care of what's mine. I'm starting to understand that, Emma said. But Vincent? Yes? It goes both ways. You're mine too, and I take care of what's mine. Something flickered across Vincent's face. Surprise, pleasure, and something deeper. Something that looked almost like hope. Deal, he said softly, and sealed it with another kiss. Outside, the sun was setting over the Castellano estate, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Inside, Emma Hartley, soon to be Emma Castellano, stood in the arms of a dangerous man and felt safer than she'd ever felt in her life. 3 months later, Rosa danced at their wedding, radiant in silver silk and crying happy tears. 6 months after that, when she passed peacefully in her sleep, Emma and Vincent were holding her hands. And 5 years after that, when Emma stood in the same hospital where she'd once been cornered and afraid, this time wearing a white coat with Dr. Emma Castellano, Chief of Nursing, embroidered on it, she thought about the night that had changed everything. The night she'd begged someone not to let her see her harasser alone. The night a dangerous man had said that harasser wouldn't be able to see at all. The night her life had been saved and transformed in equal measure. Vincent was waiting in the parking lot when her shift ended, leaning against his car with that same intense focus that had captured her from the beginning. When he saw her, His whole face softened. "How was your first day, Chief Castellano?" he asked, pulling her into his arms. "Perfect," Emma said, and meant it. Absolutely perfect. Vincent kissed her, right there in the parking lot where anyone could see, claiming her as thoroughly as he had that first day. Some people called it a fairy tale, the nurse and the mob boss, the whirlwind romance, the happily ever after. Emma called it the luckiest day of her life, the day she'd been scared enough to ask for help and brave enough to accept it from the most dangerous man she'd ever met, the man who'd become her husband, her partner, her home. The man who'd promised she'd never have to be afraid again, and he'd kept that promise every single day.